Ohio State has three awesome defenders in the 2026 NFL Draft. We'll tell you our favorite fit for Dallas next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The winter games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with a bet with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool, and I'm fired up for today's show because on today's show, we are starting our scouting reports for the first time for the 2026 NFL Draft. And rather than just looking at one position, we decided to look at the three Ohio State defenders who are all unbelievably awesome. We're talking Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles. And let's start with Arvell Reese, the linebacker slash edge player from Ohio State. The verified measurements here are absolutely ridiculous. 6'0", so just over 6'3", 243 pounds, 4.45 40-yard dash with 34-inch arms. What did you see from him on tape?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation that's around this guy, obviously. I mean, he's definitely considered to be one of the top players. He's probably going to end up going somewhere in the top 5 picks. A part of it has been, kind of a referendum on this draft class, right? And maybe how people feel about this class in general is that it feels like they kind of are artificially pushing folks in the top 5 that they, just to get excited about. And listen, I think Arvell Reese has been absolutely outstanding. I have zero qualms with anyone picking him in the top 5 at all. But I think people are viewing him as this top 5 player. And because of that, we are learning all the wrong lessons from the Micah Parsons experiment, and we're trying to push him out into being an edge player. And I just don't think that he is a full-time edge player. I think he is a linebacker who can do some edge things. And I think that's the lesson that kind of got learned incorrectly about the Micah Parsons situation is, to me, when we go back and look at that situation now, it's funny to me looking back, the people that were calling that like a hybrid linebacker situation. Micah Parsons was basically a pass rusher. Like, that's it. Like, he may have lined up as a linebacker in a way that you could tally it off in a PFF, lineup tracking, sort of way, in the snap count sort of way. Because you could mark him off as a Will linebacker, a Mike linebacker on this play. But if you're mugging the A gap and you're coming in pressure, you're a pass rusher. And I think that's the difference between him and Arvell Reese to me, is that to me, Reese is a guy that is truly more of a balanced, versatile playmaker. And I think that has value in itself, but I think it's an additive value. He's not like a guy that he's not a guy that I would build my defense around. He's a guy I would add to my defense to supercharge it. And I think that's where some people might have problems in the top 5, is because he's not this guy that's going to go out there and win 20% of his, pass rush reps. He's not a 12, 15 sack guy necessarily. I think he's Jamie Collins plus in my opinion. And I think it's not coincidental that Matt Patricia coached him up this last year at Ohio State. So I think he's a fantastic player. I don't think he's going to get to the Cowboys. And I think if he does, they're going to have some interesting things to do, because I do think he is an interesting player. I would love to have him on my team. I think you could unlock him in some really cool ways. But I just generally think he's not a guy that I'm drafting as my #1 pass rusher. I think that's just not necessarily his game, even though he is incredibly valuable despite that.
What's funny is you went with a Patriots off-ball linebacker. I'm going to give you a different one. To me, he reminds me a lot of, and again, think back a little bit to like young Dante Hightower.
That's who I came up with at first, honestly, and I kind of went back and dug a little bit more. And you're right; it's somewhere between Hightower and Collins.
Somewhere between those two guys.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just that I saw last year. We're staying away from the Micah Parsons comp because I don't think that's fair. I think Jalen Walker from Georgia was
Probably
a
better.
somewhat similar player. It's not perfect, but this was a 245-pound edge guy that also played off ball. They used him as this overhang defender, and he had a really good rookie season for Atlanta, and they moved him all around. I think Arvell Reese is going to need to be used in a similar vein. I think he's more athletic. I think he's
Yes.
longer. He's just as
Yes.
young as Jalen Walker was. But we also saw Walker fall outside of the top 12 picks. I know we're seeing Reese mocked in a bunch of to the Jets at 2 or the Titans inside the top 5. I won't be shocked if he falls to pick 8, 9, or 10 because if teams value him as an off-ball linebacker only, they're not going to put him that high.
Well, and I'll add this too, because the thing that makes him so valuable, in my opinion, or the kind of the point of his game, the apex of his game, he's a hammer. Like he takes a hammer to blocking schemes. If you want to throw him at a passing scheme, he'll hammer that too. He'll come down, he'll hammer guards, he'll blow up run plays, he'll knife into the backfield and destroy running backs before they, as they're getting the football. He's a guy that's coming downhill to destroy whatever plan you've got in the run game or the pass game. And that's where he finds his value. And that's not, necessarily always so sexy. I mean, it is when you're rushing the passer, but like
it is.
There's a lot of value in having this guy at your linebacking crew. But it's not, he's not going to be a 12 sack guy. Like I said, he's not incredible in pass coverage necessarily. He does a lot of different things very well. And I think that, he can be an elite blitzer. He can be a guy that is an elite run defender. He can be a guy that can, drop into a hook zone and destroy whatever, running back or tight end you want to dump pass off to, because he can do that. I just think that, you've got to have a role for him, and you have to understand that maybe he's not the guy that you're building your entire defense around. He's a super, super high-end force multiplier.
Well, which is funny because all the things that you mentioned, I 100% agree. Like, I think he's going to be an awesome run defender right away, wherever you put him, whether it's on the edge or coming downhill as a middle linebacker. I think he can cover. I think he can blitz. But those are generally not things that are thought of when you talk about like a top 5 player in a draft. If you're drafting a front 7 guy in the top 5, you're drafting them because they're an awesome pass rusher. And of the 3 players we're going to talk about, he's the most, I don't know if he's the most athletic, but he's probably got the most upside, but he's also the farthest away from being a finished product. And that's why I know we're seeing him in a lot of early mocks inside the top 5, just like we did Jalen Walker a year ago. I will not be surprised if he falls a lot further than what people expect.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Because he is kind of a one-year wonder. But I there's a lot of weird things going against this guy. He's a one-year wonder, but he was the most dominant player on a team filled with all pro level players, right? Like, it's crazy. Like, he's on an all-time defense, and he was the main component of it. So yeah, he's an interesting evaluation. It'll be interesting to see if maybe he makes it to the Cowboys, and then they'll have a very interesting decision to make at that point.
All right, let's talk about Caleb Downs, who a lot of people have coined the best defensive back in the 2026 draft. How does he fit the Cowboys, and what's his scouting profile look like? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The winter games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events that you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the winter games on FanDuel just makes sense, from medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports that you care about the most. FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama with the curling is unbelievable. It's one of my favorite events every year. My wife really gets into the speed skating. And then, of course, the hockey games are always so intense. Even some of the, the smaller ones that we don't talk about a lot, they're must watch. Like, I'm loving the Winter Olympics, and FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. If you haven't done so already, check out the new Everydayer Club. For just $5 a month, you're going to get ad-free episodes to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Go to lockedoncowboys.supercast.com to join the club. All right, Landon, let's talk about Caleb Downs, who I know a lot of Cowboy fans have circled for a long time. They're hoping and praying he gets to 12. What did you see in your scouting report?
Yeah, I mean, just an incredible player, right? And what a resume! Just absolutely, starts in high school. He's a 5-star athlete out of high school. Was the 8th overall prospect in the nation in 2023, and was durable. Didn't miss a single game his 3 years as a starter, all the way back to his days in Alabama in 23. Went to Alabama, played for Saban as his last year there, so he knows ball. Right. And then after Saban retired, he went off to Ohio State and just decided to play on maybe the single greatest or top 5, maybe greatest defenses of all time in the 2024 Ohio State defense, in which he was probably the best player on that team. And then this year, obviously, another incredible defense that he played on and was a huge part of. And I think it says something, right, that he's been a captain, I think, all 3 years that he's been a starter, and holds himself and is respected amongst his peers. And you can tell, like, when you watch the tape, he's the guy, again, on this incredibly accoladed Ohio State defense. He's the guy that is, leading all the calls, making sure all the communication is right, a leader amongst leaders. It's just and that's a huge part of his value here, but it's not all of it. He has a solid body type for a versatile defensive back. He has played physically at this size with 3 years with no issues. I think he's a little bit longer than maybe the average kind of defensive back. He looks he's got long arms, but he doesn't.
I got him for you.
Yeah, there you go.
Almost an 80-inch wingspan.
That's and you see that, right? And like you see that in his game a little bit. Like I said, extremely qualified, experienced, and intelligent defender with plus instincts and high situational awareness. Intelligence shows up when he has to improv. Right, when the QB breaks the pocket, he picks up a linebacker's assignment and then tells his linebacker to go ahead and go chase the quarterback. Just constantly in communication, understands the angles, understands what's happening when things break down and they're out of structure. Knows where to go, knows where to look. Just experience, doesn't panic. Plays everywhere, like everywhere. You see him a single safety high. He's a half field boundary safety. He's a field safety. He's a overhang. He's a robber. He plays nickel quite a bit, and I think that's an area where he'll probably play a lot in the NFL now that it's become such a valuable part of the game. Balanced game, comfortable in coverage as a blitzer in run defense from a variety of alignments. Like, always knows his assignment, never looks confused. Has a knack of making big plays in short yardage situations. Will leap over or sift through a crowd to deliver quick strike, blunting momentum. You don't usually expect that from a guy that's sub 210, sub 6 feet, but he is a physical player. He has fluid hips. Man, it's crazy that you can watch him turn his hips and flip his hips and his head stays locked in position the entire time. It doesn't move. And it means that he can watch the play developed while he's having to flip and his hips and turning the other direction. He doesn't lose sight of anything. Excellent cog in pursuit. He keeps balance through blocks and while tracking down ball carrier, understands the position, will pass up being the one to make the play in order to make sure the play isn't made on his team. This is a really important thing. It's hard to scout safeties, but ultimately, you have to understand that as a safety, the job is called safety. You are the last line of defense, and there are times when you have to make a choice on whether to make a big play or whether to play it safe to make sure that you don't get beat, and he always makes the correct decision, and it seems like in those situations when you kind of slow it down, you can almost see the decision-making. Destroys wide receivers and screen blocks. Don't run the bubble on his side. Just don't do it. He's absolutely just destructive. How many pulses to his game? He has so many pluses to his game, but almost no weaknesses. That's the crazy thing watching him is he's not really bad at anything. 0 touchdowns allowed in coverage and 25 on 336 pass coverage snaps. Where does he win? Versatile coach on the field with for your defensive backfield. Unanswered questions. No question about his floor, but does the lack of kind of elite athleticism limit his ceiling? And where do you draft a player like that?
Well, and that's exactly the point I was going to make, because, again, I agree with all of the points that you made in terms of the scouting profile. But when we're talking about a safety, going inside, let's say the top 12 picks, Dallas drafts at 12, you would like to see a player there that has like elite physical traits. And I look at like Derwin James obviously had that. Kyle Hamilton was 6'4", 220 pounds. And those guys didn't even get inside the top 10. So I think his floor, I'm right with you, is incredibly high. But when you're not a superb elite athlete, and I also, one more knock for me, he's not the most physical tackler. Like, he doesn't miss tackles for the most part. It's a lot of shoestring tackles and drag down, which is fine.
He attacks waist high, and sometimes when he misses, it's because he lunges too much, so he'll get their feet sometimes. But he still gets it done because he's got such long arms. But I agree, it's a problem.
He's not an enforcer type at safety like we saw with Nicky Mawari with the Seahawks. So where does that guy go? Like, 3 years of production is fantastic. He's played in really complex schemes. Is he more the Buda Baker safety, which again, that's an awesome safety, or is he more the Derwin James, Kyle Hamilton that you can build your defense around? I think that's where we kind of have a debate in terms of value, but in terms of like the actual prospect, he's about as clean as it gets.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're drafting him for. Like, to me, it's like, I draft him and I'm like, I'm playing him at nickel or safety or wherever I need him to, right? And I feel like he is a playmaker. So he's not physical, but I mean, he would be an incredible blitzer. He would be really good as just a full-time nickel if you needed him to do that. And he could fill in any kind of one of these safety spots. And again, it's almost like Arvell Reese in some ways, where he's a force multiplier, right? Like that. I think the thing that having him back there, you have the value of having him in there is the athlete, Caleb Downs, but you also get the benefit of having the smart, intelligent football player, Caleb Downs, especially in a defensive backfield where, communication and it's a weak link chain system, right? Having a guy like that to kind of smooth everything over, it has value that's kind of a little bit harder to quantify. So I don't have any problems at all if he gets taken in the top 10. I just wonder if he will get taken in the top 10.
Yeah, and we don't need to have the discussion about should you take a safety inside the top 10, top 12. We can do that on another day.
Yeah,
because I do want to talk about some positional value stuff at a later time. But again, in terms of the actual report, it's very clean. I think there are some things that, like in coverage, I think he can be a little step slow and identifying like some of the hook stuff or but again, you're talking about like minor things that can be cleaned up. I just do think I think if you're going to be running a defense that has a lot of different coverages where you move all these guys around, you really need to have somebody like Caleb Downs that can do a little bit of everything. And that's why he would be a perfect fit with Christian Parker.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing, right? The fit aspect of it is really incredible. And I also think that, he's one of these guys that he's just so like experienced that you feel like he's going to be able to kind of come in and hit the ground running in a way that, and especially I think we can kind of counter some of the positional value stuff with Downs as a safety, because I do think he will end up playing a lot of nickel corner, right? So, and not that has a lot of positional value.
No, but it helps, right? You're not just locked into playing one spot.
Exactly. And nickel corner is a position that obviously we've just recently we're talking about has increased in value quite a bit these last few years. So yeah, I do think that there are some, just like Arvell Reese, some interesting elements to his evaluation that are kind of outside of his control a little bit. But I mean, the tape is elite and it's fun to watch, and about as fun to watch as a safety tape usually can be, right? So yeah, he'd be an incredible add to a team that is looking to kind of move to a more smart, heady defense. Having a guy like Caleb Downs at the head of it would really, really be helpful.
All right, let's talk about a former safety who's going to play linebacker in the NFL, and that's Sonny Styles. What do you do with a 6'4", 245-pound linebacker that runs in the 4.3? We'll tell you next. This episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out the forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms, and they work to get you every deduction possible. It's a huge time saver and gives you real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it all. And for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, all you have to do is file by February 28th. So take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Landon, we are wrapping up our scouting reports here with Sonny Styles, the linebacker from Ohio State. And listen to these measurables. 6'0", so just under 6'4", 243 pounds. He is expected, if he runs at the NFL Combine, to run a 4.38 40-yard dash. He's got 33-inch arms. He's got an 80-inch wingspan, and he's got 10-inch hands. What is this player?
I mean, he's the guy that he's going to play purely off-ball linebacker, and you're going to draft him in the top, let's say 12, hopefully, and feel great about it, right? Because he is an elite athlete with instincts. He's done it all at a defense at a high level. And he's been part of an elite defense. And he's, again, like Caleb Downs and some of these other guys, just a guy that comes in, highly accoladed player who is a guy that doesn't get hurt, doesn't miss time. And you're gonna watch the tape, and if he's available when you're gonna be thrilled that you got him, because I just another guy that just didn't have a lot of flaws here. Physically, just incredible. The tape is really, really good. He looks extremely well coached. Well, look, we'll start at the top. He's a 5-star safety coming out of the 2022 class. He was ranked 27th nationally in that class. He missed, like I said, no time in college due to injuries. He's tall, well proportioned, as you mentioned, modern linebacker. Well, he's got long legs, and his arms are long as well, but they are also very well built. He's an elite mover, man. He's not only fast, but he's very sudden, and his agility and his ability to like nimbly change direction is absolutely wild. I can't remember who I was watching, but there was a snap in which, the downside is that he got a little confused on the play. The positive is that he flipped his hips inside, outside, and back inside so fast. I thought it was like some sort of passing drill, like, where they're moving the football, and he did it as fast as I feel like I've ever seen anyone do it. He drops his hips to change direction extremely well for a player as tall as he is. He can swiftly robot, technique back over without losing any speed. I saw him do that several times, which was crazy. He defeats blocks with his hands and his feet. He plays the position almost like a running back at times, where he sets up these blockers with his feet, and they kind of misblock him because they think he's going one way, and then suddenly he's backdooring their block and getting back into the backfield and making a tackle. And by the way, excellent tackler. I think we've talked about it on this show before. This is a guy that missed his first tackle of the 2025 season, I think, on the second play of the national championship game, or not the national championship game, but the Big 12.
The game against Miami. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah, right. It was the playoff game. That's right. A guy, either way, went through the entire season where he basically did not miss a tackle while playing linebacker, right? Which is crazy. Where does he win? He's a creative linebacker level athleticism with good and improving instincts. Unanswered questions. Can you get your hands on him? I love Sonny Styles. Like, if it's not clear by my evaluation, like I think that I don't love a lot of linebackers that are pure linebackers this high. And I think in a class where you have a ton of depth and there are lots of different guys, I'm not going to be upset if the Cowboys decide to wait and draft a linebacker later. However, I am ready to fight anybody who's going to tell me that drafting Sonny Styles is a terrible idea at 12.
Yeah, we'll talk about positional value at a different show. But I want to talk, first of all, if you haven't got a chance, go watch his YouTube videos of him playing basketball in high school.
Oh,
And you'll see
man.
what kind of athlete he is. He is wild. But I have this database of every linebacker who was invited to the combine since 2000. Now, not all these guys worked out of the combine, and I'm using their pro day numbers, but there's only been one linebacker that's over 240 pounds that ran in the 4.3s. And that was Micah Parsons, who ran a 4.36 at Penn State's pro day. And that's what Sonny Styles is expected to do. He is when we say elite athlete, like an elite, rare athlete with huge wingspan. And you mentioned that he doesn't miss tackles. So he uses his length to make these tackles. There's also some times where he does just like wild athleticism things of jumping up in the air, trying to knock down passes that he probably couldn't even get because he's just that athletic. And if you want somebody that's going to cover tight ends or, drop into a cover two, or even just, I don't have a good comparison for him because we don't see linebackers this big and this athletic ever.
And this physical, like he's big and he is physical, right? And he moves. It's inverse Darren Woodson is what we're looking at. Like that's the kind of athlete we're talking about, right? Where he went from safety to linebacker and he's still the most athletic linebacker you've ever seen, right? Like, I mean, and both ways, right? Like in just not just the kind of footwork that you would expect, but also coming downhill and destroying blocks. If he wasn't playing next to literally Arvell Reese, like he would be like, that's what he would be known for is just the way he destroys blocking schemes. And that is why these two guys playing next to each other is why Caleb Downs didn't have an outrageous season this year. And why, despite that, the Ohio State defense was absolutely unscorable on for almost the entire season because they had these two guys in the middle of this defense. He is just such as complete a linebacker as I've seen come out. And I can't remember how long, honestly. He's incredibly impressive to watch.
And usually when you get these linebackers that are this athletic and long, like Isaiah Simmons from Clemson, there's still a part of their games where, they'll make plays, but you can tell they're still learning how to play football. That's not the case for Stiles. Like he has some things he can clean up. He's not perfect from a technical standpoint, but he's not a raw linebacker in the way that you would think a 6'4", 245-pound guy is. Like he's pretty technically sound. I expect him to come right in and be one of the best linebackers in the league. And for a team that had a lot of issues at linebacker last year, it's really not hard to get the idea out of your head of Sonny Styles at pick 12, and then let's just move on.
Let me drive it home real quick for Cowboys fans specifically. Imagine DeMarvion Overshown, except plus 2 inches, plus 20 pounds, and about 0.2 of a second faster on your 40. And
I was thinking Leighton Vander Esch.
Instinctual. Yeah.
Imagine Leighton Vander Esch who ran like a 4.66, suddenly running a 4.36, and that's what you have here.
Yeah. And we're not talking about different size. Like he's similarly sized to Leighton Vander Esch with similar wingspan, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So
and the thing with Stiles is like he's 6'4" and 245, and he's cut. Like I think and he's really young. I think he's 20 years old right now.
20 years old, yeah.
I think once he gets into the league, he puts on some more muscle, he bulks up. You're talking about like a guy that could easily be 265 pounds and still run in the 4.4s. Like this is a absurd athlete.
Yeah. He could easily be what we all hoped Rolando McClain would develop into.
I mean, hoped. Remember that half season of Rolando? That was really fun. All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Cowboys ad-free plus members-only Discord access and so much more. Head over to lockedoncowboys.supercast.com to join the club. And for those of you on video, we can send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. And on audio, make your second listen the Locked On NFL podcast. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.